Hello, scholars. Let's pick up where we left off with page 17, starting with Saturday, August 19th, later. So remember earlier this day, Paul and his mother got woken up to fire, and they realized that it was a muck fire. Let's begin. Dad and Eric were gone all day. Our house never did burst into flames, but the thermometer on the patio, hanging there in the direct sun, did climb to over 100 degrees. A vicious thunderstorm hit in the late afternoon and knocked out our power for about 10 seconds. That was just long enough to make Mom and me have to go around the entire house, resetting all of the alarm clocks, VCRs, computers, and stereos. After supper, I opened the garage door and walked my bike out toward the street. The air was hot and damp, but there was no smell of smoke. The wind was blowing west now, toward the Gulf of Mexico. You can actually see the wind here. It whips around full of white construction sand. The sand covers the streets and the unsold lots. The same white sugar sand that whipped through our development in Houston and the one before that in Huntsville. I turned left and pedaled against the sand toward the front of the development. Our street is about half filled with houses now. The development has grown from the west side to the east side, and we're on the last street before the east wall. Every empty lot on our street has a sold sign on it, though, so Lake Windsor Downs will soon be complete. I stopped at the model homes area, 4 houses surrounded by the same white picket fence, and pulled off my glasses to clean them. Lake Windsor Downs offers 4 choices to homebuyers, each named after a British royal family: the Lancaster, the York, the Stuart, and the Tudor. Mom absolutely loves that. I'm sure that's why we live here instead of in the estates at East Hampton, or the manors of Coventry, or the villas at Versailles. Mom will soon be describing people like this. They're the 2-story Lancaster with the teal trim, or they're the white Tudor with the red tile roof. I replaced my glasses and started off again, riding parallel to that high gray wall. I stopped for a few minutes to watch 2 guys unloading the thick squares of muddy sod from a flatbed truck. They plopped the squares down over the white sugar sand like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. When they pulled away, a new white Stuart had a new green lawn around it. I pedaled up to the iron gates. They open onto a 2-lane entranceway with a cement island in the middle. There's a fancy little guardhouse on the island, like something the kings and queens in history would have built to keep out the serfs, or the vandals, or whoever. It isn't keeping anybody out now. It's empty inside, but I could see a dirty ashtray and a wastebasket full of soda cans. Just inside the entranceway is a big pond. Lake Windsor, I suppose. I started around it on my bike. It's a perfectly round blue lake with a border of grass between the water and the road. I thought I heard a splash in the water, but I couldn't see anything moving. I rode completely around the lake in 1 minute and then headed toward home. As soon as I turned onto our driveway, I saw a black Jeep Cherokee parked in our driveway. A heavy-set man in shorts was talking to Mom. She was pointing at the top of our house and smiling. When I pulled up next to them, she was saying, so naturally, I thought I'd see flames shooting out of the roof. The heavy-set man turned toward me, nodding his head in sympathy. Yeah, when that muck fire kicks up, it can be a real stinkeroo. Hello, young man. Hello, sir. Paul, Mom said, this is Mr. Costello. He's the president of the Homeowners Association. This is my son, Paul. I said, pleased to meet you. Mom added, he lives in the brown and beige Tudor on the west side. I shook Mr. Costello's outstretched hand and said, I was just up at the lake just now. Is that right? He smiled. Did you see any of the koi? The what? The fish. Koi. Japanese carp. They look like giant goldfish. No. No, I thought I heard something, but I didn't see any fish. You get up there early in the morning and check out those koi. They're really something to see. We had them flown in from Atlanta, stocked the lake full of 'em. Mom asked, the lake? Is that Lake Windsor? Mr. Costello laughed. I guess it is now. It's not an official lake. It's man-made. Any new development like this has to have a retention pond for storm runoff. We decided to make the lake a centerpiece, a showpiece for our community. We stocked it with the koi and added plenty of green space around it for strolling or even picnicking. He reached over and squeezed my elbow. No fishing though, okay? Those koi are high-priced fish. Just then, Dad and Eric turned the corner and pulled into the driveway. As usual, when Eric appears, the attention switched from me to him. Dad and Mom started to tell Mr. Costello about what a great football player Eric is, but Mr. Costello was ready for them. He has a football playing son of his own, and he hopped into his Jeep Cherokee to go get him. They all wound up in the great room near the fireplace. I sat on a stool near the kitchen. Mr. Costello's son is named Mike. Mike and his father talked about the football program at Lake Windsor High with a great deal of pride. Mr. Costello pointed out, "You've only had the program for 10 years, and we've already surpassed the program at Tangerine High. No big school football players are coming out of Tangerine High anymore. The Lake Windsor Seagulls are now the dominant team in 3 counties. They're rewriting all the county record books." Dad said, "What position do you play, Mike?" Mike Costello spoke very well, like one of those football guys who make United Way commercials. "Coach Warner and Dad and I made a decision last year. Coach had enough linemen, but he had no backup at quarterback. He's been working with me, and now I'm number 2 quarterback on the depth chart." Mike's father turned to Mom and explained, "That means he's the backup to Anthony Thomas." But no one in my family needs to be told what number 2 on the depth chart means. If Mom had chosen to, she could have explained to Mr. Costello what it really means. As a backup quarterback, his son Mike would be handling the snaps and holding the ball for the place kicker. In this case, Eric Fisher, a place kicker who can hit with deadly accuracy from 50 yards. If Mom had chosen to, she could have explained to him that Mike Costello's backside would be featured in the local paper, often as he held the ball for this new place kicking sensation. But she didn't. Mike was very friendly. He told Eric that he had heard about him already from the coach and that he was looking forward to working with him. Eric smiled and said, "So, Coach Warner told you that you'll be my holder?" Mike answered, "Coach wants me in there as the holder so we can have the option. Either we can kick the ball, or we can fake the kick and have me roll out and run or pass." Eric was still smiling, but he said, "Coach Warner knows what I can do. He can send anybody out there to pretend to kick a field goal. When I go out there, it'll be for real." Mike shrugged and said, "That'll be the coach's call, won't it?" Eric locked eyes with him for a second and backed off. "Yeah, of course it will." I thought to myself, way to go, Mike. But I had to admit Eric was right. I've heard Coach Warner talk to Dad enough to know he's counting on Eric to be an impact player, a star. I guess part of that stardom will come at Mike's expense. I can see Mike Costello's future. I can see the Tangerine Times photos of the sensational senior place kicker Eric Fisher and his anonymous holder. Dad has the clippings from Houston on the sensational junior place kicker Eric Fisher and his anonymous holder, a kid whose name totally escapes me now. There will be no football glory in Mike Costello's future. But does Mike or his father really care? They certainly don't care the way Dad and Eric do. Dad told them that he graduated from Ohio State, but he added that he always regretted not being big enough to play football there. Mike's dad told us that he graduated from FSU and from FSU School of Law. He didn't add that he regretted anything. Both Costellos seemed to be impressed by Eric. They both asked about his high school exploits back in Houston. They both admired the gold varsity ring on his hand. Dad boasted that Eric was the only sophomore in his high school ever to receive one. Eric was a phony as he needed to be. He asked some questions about Lake Windsor High student government and about its National Honor Society. He asked about early acceptance programs at different universities in Florida. Mike told us that he had already been accepted into FSU School of Engineering, so I don't think he's too worried about his future in football or in anything else. Actually, he seems a pretty decent guy for a football player, but who knows? He's bound to change in one way or another once he gets caught up inside the Eric Fisher football dream. So pause here so that you can reflect and annotate and add to your double entry journal. Monday, August 21st. It took me a long time to fall asleep last night. I was thinking about this. Eric's arrival is going to change the football season at Lake Windsor High School. Dad's arrival is going to change how things are done in the civil engineering department in Tangerine County. Mom's arrival will change the homeowners association in Lake Windsor Downs. So what about me? Will I make the difference between winning and losing for the middle school soccer team? I have this sense that great things are expected of us here. Dad calls us a booming area, but it's no Houston. It's not even a Huntsville. It's like we're major leagues who've been sent down to a minor league city for a while. We're expected to do great things here and then move back up to the big leagues. I got down to breakfast just as Dad was leaving. He was halfway out the door and he did not look happy. He was lecturing Mom. You ought to file a complaint against that fireman. You ought to call the county and complain about the slow response time. Then you ought to complain about them sending some jerk kid out here who doesn't know what he's doing or what he's talking about. I don't know why, but I immediately rose to Wayne's defense. He sure seemed to know what he was talking about, Dad. He sure knew all about the mug fire. Dad snapped back. No professional shows up 20 minutes late wearing cutoffs. If you work for me, you'd be fired. Then he was out the door, leaving me with my unanswered questions. Fired for what, Dad? For telling us the truth? For telling us something that you didn't know? That you should have known? After breakfast, I joined Mom in one of the guest bedrooms. We'd taken on the job of unpacking the boxes. We had already worked our way through the great room, the living room, and the dining room. Shade and storage space, Mom said, are the two things that you do not get in Florida. People pack up their northern homes with their attics and basements and tiny upstairs rooms that nobody ever uses, and they move into these Florida homes that are as wide open as cathedrals. All the house space down here is devoted to air and light, nothing to storage. Mom had, of course, anticipated this problem. Before the movers came, we had set aside everything that we would not use on a regular basis in Florida. All of these items are now stacked in a climate-controlled storage space just west of here, out on Route 22. We probably have as much stuff out there as we do here in the house, including most of Mom's antiques, which just aren't Florida. It occurred to me as we unpacked the things that are Florida that Mom might actually hate moving here. But of course, she will never tell me about it, just like she would never have told Grandmom and Grandpop about hating any of those moves of her childhood. Mom would never waste her time complaining, just like she would never waste her time worrying about the past. Later in the afternoon, we drove up Route 89, past new developments with new walls and guardhouses, past a long row of high-tension wires to the adjoining campuses of Lake Windsor High School and Lake Windsor Middle School. All the way there, we seemed to be riding side by side with black storm clouds. I hope we get in before this rain starts, Mom muttered as we turned at Siegel Way into the enormous black-topped parking lot of the campus. We drove past the long, windowless two-story high school and around the football stadium to the middle school. The middle school office is located in a one-story building that looks like the younger brother of the high school building. We made it inside just as the first bolts of lightning cracked around us. While Mom gave my name to the secretary, I looked through a glass door at a field full of small wooden shacks. They take up most of the space between this main building and the steel bleachers of the high school football stadium. I wonder who gets put in those shacks, I said, turning toward Mom. She was now standing with a tall, thin woman with jet black hair. The woman eyed me coldly and said, all seventh and eighth graders are in portable classrooms. The main building is for sixth graders only. Mom did not look pleased. The woman continued, I'm Mrs. Gates. I'm the principal here at Lake Windsor Middle School. Mom extended her hand. I'm Carolyn Fisher. This is my son Paul. Hello, Paul, she said. What can I tell you folks about Lake Windsor Middle? We were hoping to see exactly where Paul will be going next week. He has problems with his eyesight. He's legally blind. So we were hoping to make a dry run today. Mrs. Gates looked hard at my glasses. She seemed to be trying to think of a way out of it, but finally said, I see. I see. All right, let's take a quick tour. Mrs. Gates and Mom took off at a fast walk. I followed slowly, angry at Mom for calling attention to my eyesight. She wanted a tour of the place because she's nosy and wants to see everything for herself. It wasn't because I can't see, because I can. I can see just fine. We call this building, Mrs. Gates explained. We call this the building, Mrs. Gates explained. It contains the main office, the cafeteria, the library, and the sixth grade classrooms. Did you have an auditorium? Mom asked. The cafeteria doubles as the auditorium. What about a gym? When we need to, we use the high school gymnasium. But where do you have your PE classes? Oh, we always have physical education outdoors on one of our fields. And when it rains, then we have it indoors in the classrooms. Surely they don't do jumping jacks in those wooden portables. No. On a rainy day, the PE teachers will most likely concentrate on other parts of the curriculum, such as healthcare or good nutrition. We were outside now, facing the portables. There must be 40 of them, all connected by a system of wooden walkways, the kind of boardwalks you see at the beach, only these stretch over some sick-looking grass and a lot of brown dirt. Mrs. Gates was speaking rapidly. Each portable is, of course, air-conditioned. As you can see, all of the buildings on our campus are grounded with lightning rods for our afternoon storms. Mom eyed the field with alarm. How would you ever know if there were some emergency out here? Mrs. Gates turned to her head and said, Like what? I froze. Even I could hear the annoyance in that voice. Mom locked eyes with her. Does it really matter like what? Do I really have to provide you with an example of what constitutes an emergency? Mrs. Gates retreated. No, of course not. Each portable is connected to the main office by a telephone and a public address system, and each has its own pull alarm in case of fire. We all stared at the crisscross of wooden walkways until Mrs. Gates asked, What brings your family to Tangerine? My husband's job. He's a new deputy director of civil engineering for the county. I see. Large drops of rain started to fall around us, so we headed back inside. Mom prompted me, Paul, do you have any questions? Yes. Do you have a soccer team? We do. We have an excellent soccer program, a boys' team, and a girls' team. We play against all the schools in this area. Are you a soccer fan? I'm a soccer player, I corrected her. I play goalie. We were now back at the main office. Mrs. Gates led us through into her private office. Mrs. Fisher, I'd like to get you to fill out an IEP for Paul, an individualized education plan. Being vision impaired, Paul is entitled to take part in our IEP program. Basically, we identify Paul's situation, set specific goals for him to achieve, and note any special needs he might have. Mom started to read the form. I stepped outside to show that I wanted no part of that conversation. I spotted a glass trophy case and went to check it out. The biggest trophy was for last year's boys soccer team. It said, First place Tangerine County Sports Commission. Mom came out of the office briskly. We ran through the cold rain to the car. Once we were inside and belted up, she said, So, what do you think of Lake Windsor Middle School? I don't know, I mumbled, staring out the window. We drove back, past the fields of portables, but Mom suddenly hit the brakes. Look at that! She cried. The field was now completely flooded like a rice paddy. The brown water had risen to within inches of the wooden walkways. We both shook our heads in disbelief. Then I decided to answer her question about the school. I guess if they have a decent soccer team, I'll let them slide about not having indoor classrooms and not having a gym. Yeah, Mom sputtered, not having a gym or an auditorium. Two more facts apparently overlooked by her father. And what am I supposed to do? Send you to school every day in rain gear with an umbrella? Mom would never say it, but I bet we were thinking the same thing. What else has Dad overlooked about Tangerine? We drove on in silence, except for the pounding of the rain. From the flooded campus of Lake Windsor Middle School to the flooded streets of Lake Windsor Downs.